Hello friends, welcome to JavaEE EJB-JPA tutorial. Now you are watching part 3 of the sub-series JPA relation one-to-many and many-to-one. So here we are going to create bean layer function to add a new employee and map the employee to the existing job. So in the first part, we learned about the pub schema database tables, employee and jobs. Then we created entities for both these tables. Then we marked the entities with one-to-many and many-to-one annotations. We will implement adding an employee and mapping the person to the existing jobs. That means here we will create new employee and we assume job already exists. So that's how we will create the first part of this example. Here, if you see, we will add new employee. ID will get auto-generated. Then we will populate first name, middle name, last name, and we will populate the job level as well as we will populate this field based on the join. So the information will come from jobs table. So if you look at the UI here, user will populate these fields: first name, middle name, last name. So all these fields will get populated. Then here we are providing a job level of 100 as a default, but user can change and populate this as well. Then from the drop down, they can pick a job. So this part actually belongs to the previous text box, and so there's an alignment issue. This is for this combo box or choice. So here job level 100, and we are stating that job level should be between 10 to 250. So to avoid constraint violation on the table, we are providing this information. Then here job level that can be picked here. So for example, here if I say job level as 100, then when we are picking the job, that job requirement should meet. That means the job level should read. So this one is the minimum experience and maximum experience. So this is current experience level 100. So that's all here. And if you see here, we are mapping to an existing record. So first name, middle name, last name, and job level, these are all the new information. Based on that, we will create a new employee, and this one feeds from the existing job table, and user will have a look of what are all the available job, then they will map it. User can pick existing job. So from here, from the pull down menu, from this one, so the pull down menu will look like this. Say for example here job level 100, and user should not pick this job role. Why? Because it doesn't meet the requirement, or they have to change job level to 210 or 220, like that, within this range. And for this 100, the job that is meeting the requirement is this one. And so this is a new hire if we doesn't assign any role. So likewise, so this one also allowed. Yeah. Okay. So as already told, this information is taken from or fetched from the jobs table. This way, one can assign a job role to the newly created employee. So if you see here, we are creating a new employee, new information, then we are assigning the job role to the employee. That means when we are persisting this information through entity manager, it should persist only the employee information even though the join exists. Then this one, or in the job table, it doesn't touch anything. So when we go to the example, that time you will understand. Now let's make the changes on the bean layer. So in the bean layer, we are going to implement the function that talks with the entity manager, but these form designs we will do in the later part of the videos. I mean in the next videos. Here we are going to implement only the bean layer. So here if you see, this is our emp job bean remote interface, and we are adding two function. This is first function and this one is the second function. Here if you see, the query jobs just returns list of job. So why we are implementing this? Because we need to populate list of jobs in the drop down menu, in the combo box or choice. HTML choice, we will read this list of job and we will load that. Then add employee, if you see, from form these fields will get fetched, or from HTML form or JSP form we will collect the information from the user and we will send it to this remote interface function. First name, middle name, last name, job level and job ID as well. Here job ID we will generate. I mean generate in the sense, okay, emp ID we will generate. This job ID is for mapping purpose. So this job ID will come from the combo box. Combo box we will load from the existing jobs by making use of this remote interface function. After that user will pick and they will do the submit, and when they submit, job ID will come to this add employee method of the remote interface. So here if you see, the emp job bean, this is the new stateless bean which we will create, and this bean implements emp job bean remote. And if you see here, we are using the entity manager em, and the persistence context is JPA savings account. We know that JPA savings account, this specific persistent unit understands 4 entities: savings account, employee, job, and there is one more which I forgot. I think that one is address, I guess. Alright, anyhow, this JPA savings account now knows 4 entities, and as part of this sub-series or in the previous video, we added the entities employee as well as jobs. Here in the query job method, this is the implementation for B. Here in the remote interface we declared it, and here we are implementing it. And if you see, first we are forming the JPA SQL select from job. So it looks like the normal SQL query only. The only difference is the alias job. Here job is the entity name, alias is J, select J from job. That means it will retrieve all the job records and maps that to the entity. Alright, create query, and we are passing this JPA SQL, and the JPA SQL is passed. So here create query takes the string form of JPA query, and when create query executes, it returns the query object, and then from that query object we are making call to get result list. So JPA query was already explained in our previous sub-series. You can look at the prerequisite to know which sub-series it was. So since we know that it will return multiple record from query, we make a call to get result list, and here since it retrieves the list, we are casting it to list of job, and we are assigning it to a reference, then we are returning it. So this implementation is over. JPA SQL create query, then we are executing that, and it returns a list of job, we are returning that. So the function return type is a list of job, right? So whoever calls this, they get a list of job. Next we will go to the implementation of EA. Here if you see, first name, middle name, last name, job level, job ID, everything is coming in, and we need to create a new employee in the database. So information, if you see, 1, middle name, last name, job level, and job ID. So first name is given by user here, then mid name, the field will receive the input for mid name, and last name. Job level by default it is 100, but user can change it. Then the job ID will come from this choice box. That means when we are populating this choice box, we should have a way of setting this job ID. Even though user is not seeing the job ID and they are seeing only the job title and experience level, when the end user picks a specific job, it returns job ID to the method here. So in the function implementation, first we create a new employee entity, emp. Then we are setting the fields of this entity. So first name, middle name, last name, we are making call to the setter method, and we are populating the content which is coming here as a parameter. Right, from parameter we are giving that to the setter method. Now our entity is loaded with the fields. This is in the heap at this moment. There are 4 data that is feeding in, and now our employee entity will hold this information. Then if you see the ID, ID we need to generate, right? It is not a auto sequence. And there is a check constraint for the emp ID. This is taken from the database. If you see, there are here is the OR condition. First 3 characters should be A to Z. After that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 digit, the 5 letters should be a number. After that it should end with F or M. Similarly, first 2 digits should be A to Z, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, number ends with F or M. So what here we are doing, we are taking some constant string. This is taken from the database itself. Then we are making use of a math.random, and we are just replacing this number portion. Then once the math.random number is generated, I mean the 5-digit number is generated, we are replacing 42628 with this random number. So this way we are generating the ID field. So since here we are generating a 5-digit number, let's say 6-digit, the probability of a failure is 1 by R. If there are 20 records already exist in the database, this is the probability of failure. So sometime we may end up generating the number which already exists in the database, but the failure is very less. 99% of time this will work. This is just to avoid adding more piece of code. Here we are concentrating on one-to-many, and we don't want to concentrate too much on generating this unique ID. So that's why we are using the existing ID and we are replacing some portion of it. Alright, anyhow here ID is ready, which will work most of this time. Then if you see, finally we are setting the ID on the emp entity. So if this is the key field, that's also set by this time. Next we need the link field that needs to be set, right? So what we are doing, entity manager dot find job dot class and job ID we are passing. So since here we are passing the reflection information, that means the runtime information for this class, entity manager knows that it is maintaining the job entity, and the job entity is tied to jobs table in the SQL server, and the second parameter is asking to find the job based on this ID. So entity manager will find a record and converts that as a entity, or populates the record into the job entity and gives back to the caller. Here we are calling it em.find, and it returns the job entity, and we are storing that as a job to link. Then this job to link, we are setting it to the emp. So all fields are now ready. The ID field, then other fields which are fed from the form, then the link which we find here based on the job ID, and we populate the entity job, and then we are setting that to the job to link. Here if you see, this is like job. That's how we defined this containment, right, in the employee entity. If you look at our previous video, you will come to know employee, and we marked this as many-to-one. The relation is many-to-one, right? All right. So once all this stuff are done, here in the entity manager we are making call to persist, and if you see here in the persist, we are giving the employee, and it will persist all this information, and it doesn't create any new record in the jobs table. Why? Because first of all, here in the emp instance, we doesn't provide any cascade attribute, cascade all or cascade persist, all those stuff we doesn't provide here. We completely left the persist, so I mean the cascade information. So that's why when we ask for persist, it will persist only the employee information, but when it is persisting the employee information, it will here, even though the job is loaded as an entity, when it is populating the record, it will provide the ID. Say for example 412, and 412 maps to the job table key field. That's all here. Now it's a demo time. Let's go to Eclipse and create the bean layer. So since we need to create a new bean, here we are opening the emp job bean. So previously we worked with saving account bean, right? Now we need to create a new bean. So here I'm right clicking it, new session bean. The bean is stateless. Package, it's not stateful, it's stateless session bean. So we already have a package stateless bean. I am choosing the same package. Emp job bean. So that's the name we are giving for the bean. We will opt for remote interface. Mapped name we will give it as emp job bean, and we will click finish here. Alright, now we will do some cleanup here. So the bean is created, and you can see in the EJB client we have a corresponding remote interface is created, emp job bean remote, and at present it doesn't have any method. We will start adding the method now. So in the remote interface we are adding two methods. This is from tube coding examples JPA.entity. So the employee is resolved now. Next one is list. This is from java.util package, and the job, this is also coming from the entity package. So we added the method, and now we will go to employee job bean implementation. Here if you see, we added the persistent context name JPA savings account entity manager EM, and we imported this persistent context and entity manager from JavaEE.persistence. JavaEE.persistence. Next we implement our first method, and this was already explained in the PowerPoint slide. So employee is from tube coding example JPA entity. So I think we forgot to add this set job level. We'll go to JPA savings account. We created getters and setters, right, for employee. We forgot to add this during the entity creation itself. Later we manually added that. That means we need to generate getter and setter for this one. Source, generate getters and setters. Okay. Okay. Now we will save this. So the error at this set job level is gone. Here we should take it from JPA entity. That's all. We implemented this add employee. Next, we need to implement the query job. This is also already explained in the PowerPoint slide. List is from java.util, query from javax.persistence. If you see, the query is coming from a variety of packages, javax.management and REST easy annotation. There are multiple packages, and you have to carefully select which package this query is from. So it's from javax.persistence. So that's all. We implemented both the methods. Now we will start the server and check for errors. So server is started. Now we will deploy EJB-EAR, which contains all the projects. So it published our EJB-EAR, and there is no red line or errors. Alright, now we can clear the console, stop the component. This will perform and deploy, then remove the component. After that, we will stop the server. So that's all here in this video. We implemented the bean layer. You can download the code from the video description. Thank you for watching. Bye.